You know, one of the most tedious, mind-numbing parts of being a developer has to be project setup. Well, today, we're diving into a tool called STRUCT, which is designed to kill that boilerplate and let you get back to the fun part, actually coding.
I mean, we've all been there, right? You're starting a new project and you get that sinking feeling of déjà vu. It's that initial, manual, and honestly super boring setup phase.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. Creating the exact same folder structure you did last week. Hunting down that perfect.getignore file you use for everything. Manually typing out the same old boilerplate for a package.json or a setup.py. It's not just repetitive, it's a recipe for mistakes. You forget one tiny config file, or even worse, your project setup is slightly different from your teammates, and suddenly you're debugging inconsistencies instead of features. It's the very definition of a grind.
But what if you could just not do any of that? What if you had a personal assistant whose only job was to handle all that project scaffolding for you? Well, that's pretty much what STRUCT is.
So what is it really? At its core, STRUCT is this super powerful and flexible command line tool for automating project structures. And the magic here, the real secret sauce, is that it uses simple, easy-to-read YAML files to define everything. It lets you treat your project setup just like code, declarative, version-controlled, and totally reusable.
And the power of STRUCT really shines when you see how all its features work together. You're not just making empty files, you're building a whole dynamic system. You've got YAML for the structure, Ginger for dynamic variables, and hooks for running commands. It covers the entire setup process. And it's got a dry run mode, so you can see exactly what it's going to do before you commit. No surprises.
Okay, so that's the what. But how does this thing actually tick? Let's pop the hood and take a look at the engine.
The heart of every STRUCT project is a file called .struct.yaml. Inside, you just define your files, folders, and any variables you need. But honestly, the real power move here, it's the pre-hooks and post-hooks. These let you run any shell command you want, turning what could be a simple file generator into a full-blown automation engine.
And in practice, it looks super clean. You can see right here how it uses a Ginger2 template variable for the project name. When you run STRUCT, it'll just ask you for that value and then inject it right into your files. This makes your templates incredibly reusable for all sorts of projects.
So once you've made this simple little blueprint, it's just one command to bring it all to life. STRUCT generate. That's it. You go from a simple definition to a real working project directory in seconds.
But look, just creating files and folders? That's just the beginning. Let's get into the features that can seriously supercharge your workflow and go way beyond basic scaffolding.
This is where we get into what I like to call your developer superpowers. We're going to look at how hooks automate literally everything, how mappings keep your templates clean, and how you can pull in content from anywhere on the internet. And we'll wrap up with a feature I absolutely love, smart auto-completion right in your terminal.
Okay, let's talk about hooks again for a second because this is huge. This quote really says it all. We're not just creating files anymore, we are automating the entire setup process. Just imagine this, you run one command and it not only creates your project, but it also runs git init, installs all your dependencies from requirements.txt, and even runs your initial database migrations. That is the power hooks give you. Now for even cleaner and more reusable structures, STRUCT has this concept called mappings. This lets you pull out your configuration data, stuff like API keys, team emails, or different AWS account IDs for staging versus prod, and keep it separate from your template logic. You stick all those values in an external file, and your main structure definition stays clean, generic, and totally portable.
And this remote fetching feature, it's just a massive quality of life improvement. Forget digging around for a standard .getignore file. Just point directly to one in a GitHub repo. You can pull any raw file from the web or even from private S3 buckets, which is perfect for standardizing things like license files or CI/CD workflows across your whole company.
Okay, for those of us who basically live in the terminal, this next feature is an absolute game changer. You know that friction, right? When you have to stop what you're doing, open a browser, and search the docs just to remember the exact name of a template? Well, what if your terminal just knew? And boom, there it is. You type struct generate, you hit the tab key, and you get a complete list of every single built-in and custom structure that's available to you. It makes the tool's entire power discoverable without ever having to leave your command line. It's beautiful. So by now, you're probably thinking, okay, I need to try this like yesterday. And the best part is, you can go from zero to your first fully automated project in just a few seconds.
Here it is, your 4-step path to automation. First, install it straight from GitHub with pip. Second, run struct init in a folder to get a sample config file you can play with. Third, check out all the cool built-in templates with struct list. And finally, generate your first project. It really is that easy to get going.
So, there you have it. Struct gives you this powerful, flexible, and pretty elegant way to automate away all the boring parts of setting up a project so you can get to the creative, fun stuff way faster. And that really just leaves one big question for you to think about. Looking at your own workflow, what's the first repetitive task you're going to automate?